What's up, guys? I just got done doing a quick street parking workout. It was the vault this week, the mummy. I'm a few days late doing it, but work's been busy, so. Today we are gonna go over the Reebok Nano X3. I have been meaning to do this review for a few weeks now. The shoe's been out since early February for Reebok Unlocked members, and just a few weeks after that to the general public, whatever. It's weird because anyone can be a member of Reebok Unlocked, you just have to sign up, so. When I first saw it, I was like, oh no, that looks just like the Reebok Nano X2, which was okay. And it also looks similar to the X1, which I think was a terrible shoe. The X2 was a little bit better, but ran big. So when I saw the X3, I was like, oh no, it's the same thing with a few small upgrades. But surprisingly, it's way different. So first off, the outer is a knit-like material. It's tighter woven, I think, and not as loose feeling as the X2 shoe. And that I think also makes it sturdier. It's still fairly ventilated. There's not much stretch to it when you go to do a movement. There's kind of a holographic looking overlay that feels kind of like TPU material or plastic. And then there's this like outside plastic right here that you can see that wraps clear around to both sides. And that is called the chassis system, I think they called it, which starts in the heel, goes to the midfoot about right there, and then there's like a little air pocket or air bubble pillow thing under the heel. So when you do a squat or step down in it, it compresses and basically flattens out and widens, which is supposed to make the heel and the shoe itself more stable. Okay, so the outside, the Rope Pro is a little higher on each side. There were some problems with this peeling away and tearing basically on the older models. Like most Reebok Nanos, it has a 7mm heel to toe drop, which seems like a lot when you come from like wearing barefoot shoes or more minimalist shoes, but I think the 7mm drop feels pretty good. For example, I think the Go Ruck ballistic trainers have a 9mm drop maybe, along with the tier shoes, but most are between 4 and 7, 4 and 9, so it's right in there with most. Overall, I think these don't feel very heavy. I think they feel about average, but they are some of the heavier Nanos. The 10s were a little heavier, but the 10s also looked a lot clunkier than these. So I think on your feet, these feel lighter or just as light as the other recent Nanos that have came out in the last few years, besides the 10s. Those still felt heavier. So as far as function and fit, these shoes are really good for squatting. The outsole is all new, and when you look at just the outsole itself, it seems pretty smooth, like you're not going to have very good grip, but it is pretty grippy. There's some diagonal lines cut into the tread pattern that do make these pretty stable. I think the outsole is made of different rubber or something a little grippier, so I did not have any stability or grip issues in these. Even in the, the gym floor, working out on the concrete or in the driveway, going for a ruck. I didn't really wear them on the trail much, so I can't speak to that. They're not really trail shoes. And then I wore them to work quite a bit, which is a 12-hour shift, and they did just fine there too. I have fairly wide feet, and the toe box is nice and wide for me. You get good toe splay when you're doing squats, when you're jumping, running, and I did not have any trouble with the width of these shoes. The heel does not come up super high on the Achilles. I did have a little bit of heel slip though. So whenever I would step up, or I'm pulling my foot up, whether it's running or moving, jumping, whatever, I got a little bit of heel slip in the back. Now I could have laced them higher or done a lace lock, but with bigger ankles, that's not always necessarily comfortable. I did just lace them just a little tighter in general, and that did help. But the inside material of the shoe is very plush. It's very soft and very nice and feels great when you put it on, but I did have a tiny bit of heel slip when I wore these. Along with the insole is kind of slick feeling. It's almost like a satin material when you feel it. It's kind of slick. So that did not help really my foot grip inside the shoe when I was doing movements. So I think the goal of their chassis system was to make these a more comfortable running shoe. Now, I do not really think that worked. Everyone's always like, oh, this is the most comfortable lifting and running shoe, great for CrossFit, blah, blah, blah. After you've worn like actual running shoes, whether it's like Ultras with the wide toe box, or Saucony, or even like really nice Nike running shoes, I don't think any training shoe is going to be comparable. So in my mind, when I run in these, they're still not comfortable. Now, that's just my opinion. I can tolerate them for short runs, maybe a half mile together, a couple 200s, couple 400s, but that's about it. Beyond that, I don't like running in training shoes. I would rather do a few squats or a few other movements in a running shoe than run a whole bunch in a training shoe. The shoe itself is kind of stiff. You can see, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but there's not a lot of flex through like the midfoot, mostly just in the toe. So it does feel kind of stiff, and I think that's that chassis system that goes through the midfoot. The other big thing Reebok did to try to make this a comfortable running shoe was put in the Floatride energy foam in the midsole, which it says Floatride there. I don't know if you can see that, but I do think the Floatride foam is pretty comfortable. You get good return out of it. It's not boggy when you run or jump, and it's not too stiff. So I do like the Floatride foam, and I think they did a good job. I think it's a good mix of stability with this and comfort. The laces are pretty standard, just flat laces, which they seem to stay tied really well. I don't love the looks of them compared to prior Nanos, but I do like the functionality. All right, I wanted to jump back on here and mention one more thing about the Nano X3. So I think they run a tiny bit on the big side. They definitely do not run small. I am typically an 8.5 or 9. Lately I've been wearing more 9s, but I got the 8.5, and I maybe could have went with an 8. Definitely do not go a half size up. If you're in between, go a half size down, otherwise stick to your true size. So I highly recommend them. I would grab yourself a pair, and if you have questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.